All right, let's talk about securing OpenSearch. Today, we're not just going to be flipping a few switches and calling it a day. No, we're talking about building a fortress. See, your data, that's the treasure. And OpenSearch is this incredibly powerful engine that runs your whole kingdom. The only problem is, right out of the box, it can be like a treasure vault with the gates just wide open. So, in this explainer, we're going to build that fortress lock by lock. First things first, just a quick refresher. What is OpenSearch? Well, it's a completely open source search and analytics suite. It actually started as a fork of Elasticsearch, but you know what? It has really become a powerhouse in its own right. We're talking log analytics, application monitoring, and, this is the really big one, it's powering the AI-driven vector searches behind so many of today's generative AI apps. Now, this brings up the big question: OpenSearch or Elasticsearch? Really, it's less about features and more about a philosophical choice. Are you all in on the 100% open source path where every feature, including all the advanced security stuff, is totally free? If so, OpenSearch is your answer. Or do you maybe prefer a more commercial ecosystem that's really focused on raw performance and a super polished UI, where you know many of those enterprise features are gonna come with a price tag? Well, that's Elasticsearch. Different philosophies, different paths. So, here's our battle plan for building our digital fortress. First, we're going to look at what I'm calling the open fortress problem. Basically, why a default setup is so darn risky. Then we'll get to work securing the perimeter, building our walls. After that, we'll manage who gets in by installing the gates and posting some guards. And finally, we'll set up the constant watch to make sure our fortress stays secure for the long haul. Okay, let's start with the core challenge here. It is incredibly easy to get OpenSearch up and running, which is great. But that ease of use, it comes with a hidden danger. A default installation is just plain vulnerable, and that makes protecting your data an incredibly urgent task. And here it is. This is the single biggest threat, and I really want this to sink in. The number one reason search clusters get breached isn't some super complex, zero-day, sophisticated hack. Nope. It's just leaving the front door open to the entire internet. It's such a common mistake, but it's an absolutely critical one that we have to avoid. All right, time to build our first layer of defense. This is all about the fundamentals. Think of it as the digital equivalent of choosing solid ground to build on and then putting up high, strong walls. We're talking about securing the operating system, the installation itself, and the network that it all lives on. So, perimeter defense really boils down to three simple but incredibly powerful steps. Step 1, start with a secure foundation. Always, and I mean always, use the official software packages and check them to make sure they haven't been messed with. Step 2, harden the operating system itself. Run OpenSearch as its own non-root user and lock down those file permissions. And third, build the network walls. Make sure OpenSearch isn't listening on public networks and use firewalls to strictly control who can even talk to it. So, our walls are up. Now it's time to think about access control. This is all about two questions. Who are you, and what are you allowed to do? We're installing the gates, that's authentication, and posting the guards, that's authorization. This layer makes sure that even if someone manages to get to your walls, they can't just stroll right inside. The core idea we're working with here is called role-based access control, or RBAC, and it's a really simple but powerful idea. You don't give everyone the keys to the entire kingdom, right? Of course not. Instead, you give people access only to the specific rooms and tools they need to do their jobs, and absolutely nothing more. And this chart really shows you how RBAC works in practice. You have different roles for different needs. An administrator? Yeah, they might have full access. But an analyst? They can read data, they can build cool dashboards, but they can't change a single thing. And then you've got an ingestion account, which an application might use. It only has permission to write new data into one specific place. Each role is limited, which really minimizes the potential damage if something goes wrong. So what are the key actions you need to take? Well, here's your checklist. First and foremost, enable the built-in security plugin. It's free, it's powerful, it's foundational. Then, kill anonymous access, no exceptions. Integrate with your company's central login system like LDAP or SAML so access is managed properly. Use dedicated service accounts for your apps. And please, be extremely careful about who can use dangerous APIs like the one that deletes all your data.
Okay, our fortress is built, the guards are at their posts, but the job isn't done, not even close. Security isn't a project, it's a process. This final phase is all about the ongoing vigilance you need to keep the fortress secure. It's about manning the watchtowers and constantly checking the locks on the vault.
This table lays out the three most critical, ongoing duties of the watch. First, you have to be monitoring. That means enabling audit logs so you can see who is doing what and when. Second, you absolutely need to have encrypted backups because remember, a snapshot is a full copy of your treasure. And third, you must be patching. Unpatched software is one of the most common ways attackers get in. It's just like leaving a known weak spot in your wall completely unrepaired. And the payoff for all this work? It's immense. Following these steps isn't just theory. Adhering to these controls significantly reduces attack surface and strengthens operational resilience. In other words, you're dramatically shrinking the number of ways an attacker can even try to get in, and you're making your whole system way more resilient when things inevitably go wrong.
And that brings us to the final question, and this one is for you. After seeing all these steps, from the foundation all the way up to the watchtower, I want you to take a hard, honest look at your own systems. Is your digital fortress really built to last? Or are the gates, somewhere, still wide open?